Hey, this is Tyger. Welcome to my stream, even if this is a pre-recorded video for this particular event here. Usually what I'm doing is live streams on Twitch and then putting up the video on YouTube. So you can find me usually on Sunday nights at 1800 UTC in summer, 1900 UTC in winter. So that is at 8 p.m. for the Central European time. And if I'm talking about what we are doing, then this is not only me, it is especially my two awesome moderators, AJ Black, who is a streamer in her own right, and CD Radar, who is also a streamer in his own right, and also a real life train driver. He drives subway trains on the Prague Metro. And it's me, Tyger, obviously doing all the talking and the train running on my streams here. So if you want to join us Sunday nights at about 8 Central European time, and if you can't be around at that time, then the videos of the streams will always appear later on YouTube. Here we have no more than 160 videos up already. And yeah, as soon as YouTube can process the video, they will appear here after they have been streamed. So what do we do? Typically, we run trains, and we usually pick a service and in a specific DLC with a specific loco or train, and then we run it up to a certain point, and then we take a short break, and then there is usually a presentation like about a topic that is train related. So if I can find my stuff, then I might show you. I've prepared a little teaser here for what kind of presentation you can expect. Like, for example, US signaling. Typically things like what are the speeds that are signaled, what the signals look like, dwarf signals, also how they translate into cap signals here on the Axela or the ACS 64 locomotive, British signaling here, temporary speed restrictions. So don't try to follow it, it's just like a little teaser for what we have. German signaling here in connection with operating rules like Zugfahrt auf besonderen Auftrag. All that stuff is in our videos. French signaling. We have almost every signaling system that is in Transit World covered. Swiss signaling here. How system L translate into system N, for example, in Switzerland. Then we have safety systems covered here. The British safety system master slide, what the systems do, how they react, how they fit together here. For example, the Dutch system ATB, Erste Generatie, how pulse code capsuling works, what the aspects in the cap are that are shown, and then we sometimes compare with speed diagrams and how this system actually is used when running the train. Austrian safety systems here, what PZB in Austria looks like as compared to what it looks like in Germany. Sometimes we look at the controls in the game and what they say. Then we also have tech information about train tech things. So if you're interested in how a hydrokinetic transmission works, then you can find a video about it, or a tap changer, how the electricity comes into the locomotive and into the driving motors, how that works with a push-pull train like the Karlsruher Kopf, for example, or how an AC induction motor and asynchronous AC induction motor works in comparison to a classic commutator motor like a DC traction motor series wound. Brake systems are discovered here, like a single pipe system like on the American freight trains with equalizing reservoir with the brake cylinders here, very old brake valve, control valve on the cars, and what the equipment for emergency brakes does. All that you can find in videos that we do, how couplers work and what is the problem with lateral buffers in connection with central screw link couplings. Sometimes we even talk about some history, like here, what is special about the 11-mouth rail link that Rivet added to the 5-circle line DLC a couple of weeks or months ago, and then we can look into the history of the railway lines of a certain area, or the history of a certain brand or train operator, like here ScotRail in its different instances. All that stuff is what we can cover in our videos, since nobody can actually see and find everything on its own. AJ made a great website where we have everything put together in a systematic way. Here it's called tygerways.off-black.com, and here you can find all the videos to put together in groups, like all the countries that you can find, like UK. Here, for example, you can find signaling videos covering different aspects of the signaling, the safety systems, operating rules, background and lore here, and then sometimes we do just videos just for fun. Those are the V-Reels videos. Then this is not only for the UK and Germany, we also have France, Switzerland, Austria, and so on. We have a special site for European Train Control, ETCS, if it sometimes is implemented at some point in time, implemented in the game more than in Luzern-sur-See. Obviously, we also have an USA page for the different signaling systems here, where is such a rich field of different signaling rules: NORAC, Metro North, the Long Island Railroad, Union Pacific, BNSF, Norfolk Southern, CSX, Caltrain, Metrolink, SCRRA, and we have a bit about positive train control as such. And we also have a page about train tech, where you can find information about like traction things, diesel mechanical, diesel hydraulic, to the asynchronous AC induction motor, brake systems, eddy current brakes here, for example, dynamic brakes. You can find stuff about running gear, couplers, wheel arrangement classification systems, push-pull trains, a bit about steam, and then, yeah, what is it? Specials sometimes when we celebrate a bit, or here I made a tribute to my dearly missed dog who deceased last year, and yeah, this is a stream to pay tribute and to commemorate. This is all the stuff that you can find on my Tygerways sites and the Tygerways team, AJ and CD Radar as the moderators. We will do our best to keep you well updated about all the stuff that we are doing. And yeah, one thing to say, I'm neither a railroader nor a professional in this area of expertise, and all I'm doing is just I'm trying to understand as much as we can do from the safety of our homes. Sometimes people who are really in the know leave comments under the videos at YouTube, and that is always very special if someone who is a real trained driver tells me something about what I got wrong or what I did not get wrong. And yeah, sometimes people who build installations like in the London Underground comment on the videos. That's super great to find that, and we can always learn more by talking about those things. But today, this is enough about promoting my own stuff. Now we can actually go and do some train driving on the Semmeringbahn in Austria. This is what I picked here. So I typically have those markers so that we know what we are actually doing in the game on the Semmeringbahn. I wanted to pick a service with the Railjet, and CD Radar typically moans at this point because the train does not look like a Railjet, and he actually used to work on the real Railjet on the Semmeringbahn before he got to be a driver for the Prague Metro, and so he knows what he's talking about. Nevertheless, it is a really beautiful DLC. Actually, one that I bought with my own money. It was I got before I became an ambassador, so you can totally be convinced that I'm not saying those things because I got the DLC for free, because I didn't. So, what I actually almost forgot is to turn on the sound again for the game, because I did not want to hear the music all the time. And now we can hear our beautiful locomotive. Reverse it to neutral so that we can open the doors. It's one of the Taurus is one of the locomotives that actually has this aisle in the middle where we can go from one cab to the other, so that we don't have to walk around our locomotive. That's always a thing that I appreciate. And our brakes, that is good. And we want the AFB. And if the AFB is taking over and doing the AFB holding brake, can already release the brakes. You can see that on the brake gauge here that we're still being held in place by the AFB holding brake. Master switch, then because we are in Austria, let's turn on the headlights. See, we're getting started at a protection signal of the new variety with the white line in the middle and a Signalnachahmer, a signal repeater. That tells us that the exit signal is clear. We can also see that from here. This indicator tells us that the doors are closed, or Austrian variety for the door interlock indicator. So as soon as the time has come, we can actually leave. Yeah, we cannot, because we have to set the AFB to a certain speed, otherwise it won't release. Good thing you can always see on this train here how the dynamic brakes are slowly releasing before we can actually get some power on the road. So this beautiful sound of the VVVF drives. We're getting started here with the PCB starting program that always limits us to 45. Keep in mind that in Austria you cannot just release after seeing a green signal that allows you to go faster than 30. Rules for releasing from PCB monitorings in Austria are very strict. We would have to pass an exit signal and then the whole Weichenbereich before we can release. And until we are out of the Weichenbereich here at Wiener Neustadt, most probably the monitoring ended anyway. Take the service where we can have some evening lights. See, now the monitoring ended before we even got close to the end of the Weichenbereich. Can accelerate to the 100 That is line speed here. Passing the yard on the left. 15 markers. We can use the Roadrunner system that is in the Taurus class locomotives in the game. I hope I hit it correctly. Yeah, that was the Roadrunner. And we can accelerate to the 150. AFB works differently from the Vectron. We don't have to confirm the speed that we set, but it works just like as soon as we move it. Here the increase to 160. Line speed signs are in red on white background in Austria, unlike Germany where we have it in black on white background. And now we are on our way through Niederösterreich, Lower Austria. We have a stretch of track before we actually get to the Semmeringbahn that starts at Gloggnitz, and then we go up into the mountains. But before that we have some straight driving with 160. On this beautiful train with the Taurus and the Austrian intercity cars, even though the livery is not exactly the one that the Railjet has. Semmeringbahn was, from what you can read, the first normal gauge mountain railway in Europe. There were railways in the mountains before the Semmeringbahn, but they were like, you find it in Arosa, and the Berliner line were narrow gauge or smaller gauge railways. And Semmeringbahn was the first normal gauge mountainous railway, built in the 1850s already by a guy called Karl Ritter von Ghega. We will meet him at least twice on our run up to Semmering. It's an impressive piece of railway architecture with a lot of tunnels and viaducts. Since 1998, if I'm not mistaken, it's even UNESCO World Heritage. And protected as such. And you know that, you probably know that there is a tunnel being drilled while we are passing St. Egyden here. Still in Niederösterreich, running down the Südbahn. Train started off the DLC in Vienna at the airport. Went all the way to Wiener Neustadt, and now we are on our way to the Semmeringbahn. At Semmering we are going into a different state, a different Bundesland in Austria. We're going from Lower Austria to Styria, the Steiermark, before we get to Graz, where our train ends. But in the DLC we only go to Mürzzuschlag, and in this video here I think I will end the video as soon as we are getting to Semmering. Driving with the AFB is typically quite relaxing, even if the speed clock... Now we're getting to the neutral section, where we have to open the main circuit breaker before we hit this sign. You can see how nicely the Taurus tells us that the main circuit breaker is open. Now we have past the end sign, we can close the main circuit breaker again and apply some power to make up for lost momentum before we pass Neunkirchen in Niederösterreich. If you're new to my streams and videos, you will notice that I am driving with a quite reduced HUD normally and all safety systems on, because I think that is the best way to enjoy all the work that had been put into recreating those systems and the displays and gauges in the cab and in the trains. So driving by the screens and the gauges is always, in my opinion, more satisfying than driving by the HUD. If you want to know how to get to this HUD setup, it is actually the classic HUD setup with everything switched off by, for example, Control 5. And the only thing that is left is this thing here, so that we can see where we are supposed to stop, what time it is, and the thing with the points as a warning thingy, so that I can see if I'm totally out of line. And what I also want is that you can see when watching the streams what controls I'm actually using with my keyboard shorts, and then the captions appear on the right, and this you can't see if I turn off the rest. So next station that we will run through is Ternitz. In the Ternitz we can already take away the power and coast, because there will be a drop in line speed from 160 to 150. And I don't want the AFB to actually apply brakes, so this is Ternitz. I just turn off the power and let the inertia slow down the train to 150. Because before we get to Pottschach, not to be confused with Pottash, what is in the Cane Creek DLC. So soon there will be the signs for the limit to 150 in this half tunnel of noise boards. That was already the announcement for Pottschach. Here's the 150 sign. In Austria, you might know that reductions in line speed are not always announced by an advanced speedboard, unlike in Germany, where every drop in line speed is announced by an LF6 sign before you get to the LF7 sign. In Austria, this only happens if the drop is bigger or is at least 20 kilometers per hour and 20% of the speed that was authorized before. Then you get those triangular advanced speedboards, red numbers on white. So for slowing down, I typically use the gradient and the inertia of the train. Just take away the power, wait for the speed to fall, then sometimes even go back with the power when we're in a gradient to soften the drop, and after that adjust the AFB, because if you adjust the AFB while you are still above the target speed, then the AFB will apply e-brakes at any rate, and then your always a couple of clicks under the target speed, and you have to accelerate back, and that is not so slick. Now when we're getting into this bend, then we know that we're approaching Gloggnitz. So you can already see the mountains in the distance. And we have to prepare for a slowdown, because at the end of the station area at Gloggnitz we will have to be at 80, and later on even down to 70 before we get to Schlögelmühl. Here was the advanced sign for the 80, because here the drop from 150 to 80 is obviously more than 20 kilometers per hour and 20%. So can we do it with the e-brakes alone? I think so. Now we're actually getting into the Semmeringbahn proper with the 80. If you're going through the tunnel, then you're not going up here, but you stay more or less in the valley. And then in the darkness until you get out on the other side. Here's the drop to 70, not announced because it is only 10 kilometers per hour from 80 to 70 here, the 70 board. Only thing that you need to be cautious not to overshoot is when all of a sudden there is a bit of a flat part in the incline, or even a bit of a downhill slope. Schlögelmühl, and we're getting some bog when running up into the hills. I hope the fog will go away again so that we see all the beautiful sights in the mountains. Before we get to Payerbach-Reichenau, there will be an increase in our line speed to 80. Somewhere around here, if I remember correctly. And here it is on the right side, and on the left side too, you can see it. Increase to 80, we can use the Roadrunner again. But you also can nicely see on this DLC here that in Austria, typically both tracks are fitted with signals in a way that you could run trains on in both directions. So wrong direction movement is not really a thing in Austria. can more or less freely choose on what side the trains are supposed to run. In Payerbach-Reichenau, at the end of the platform, we will be down to 70 though. And what is cool about Payerbach-Reichenau is that there starts a narrow gauge railway, the Höllentalbahn, what translates to Hell Valley railway. And you can see in the game nicely the tracks to the right when we're exiting Payerbach-Reichenau station. So again, let's drop. Speed will not go away that fast because the station area are typically flat areas because nobody wants to stop the train on the incline or decline. So this is Payerbach-Reichenau. The Talent 1 is standing there. The limit is here in the overhead catenary. And here on the right, this is where the narrow gauge track for the Höllentalbahn starts. And it runs up there and then to the right. Behind Payerbach-Reichenau we will get to the first of a couple of very beautiful historic viaducts. This one is the Schwarzatal viaduct. And we can see we're getting in an incline. We need much more juice to get the train at speed. As long as we can go 70, speed limit will drop to 60 at the next station of Küb, somewhere halfway down the platform. And all those little drops in speed limit are not announced, as we have said before. Let's try something, guys. Sometimes if you switch to photo mode and then back, you can clear the fog. I guess this is more a bug than a feature, but sometimes if you have too much annoying fog, then you can clear it away. Approaching Küb. And here mid-platform, as I said, drop to 60. Kübgraben Viaduct. This is the Kübgraben. So usually those viaducts are across those little valleys and ravines coming with those creeks that run down the mountainside. Getting to the first tunnel, the Payerbach tunnel. If I'm not mistaken. And the Höllgraben viaduct, also a very picturesque little valley coming down the hill. Here I think we have to make sure that we don't overshoot, because there is a little bit of a decline in here after Höllgraben. So we can't allow the AFB too much. Höllgraben, it's also like Hell's Drench, or find that a lot place names with hell in the Alps. Was the Steinbauer-Tunnel. Oh, I activated the Roadrunner. Didn't even want to. Some sparks. This must be the Faltersbach-Graben viaduct. So unfortunately I cannot bring out the sun. Double-headed Taurus intermodal train that you can obviously also drive in this DLC. Now we're getting to Eichberg. Again, away with the power so that we don't overshoot on that little flat piece. And we did overshoot. Look at that. Can't be careful enough. Here we get another increase in speed limit, like a 70. If I have not missed it yet. No, here it is. 70 increase. Don't forget the Sifa lady. Thank you. Eichberg Tunnel. And shortly after, the Ghega Tunnel. That's a name I cannot translate. At about 91.6 there will be another drop in speed limit to 60. Not here because we're now getting the Rumpler tunnel. Before we get to Klamm-Schottwien, around the next bend there will be a drop to 60, I'm quite sure. Interesting light effect. Here's the 60. Let's greet the colleague from the opposing Railjet. And this is Klamm-Schottwien. Klamm-Tunnel. So in case you're wondering, I don't know all those names by heart. I actually have a list of those tunnels and viaducts. Though not a list of the speed limits. Those I know by heart. And if you don't, you can, for example, find Noir's great Buchfahrpläne. I think they include this route too. Big viaduct. Now we're getting in the really picturesque area. The core of the Semmeringbahn. Wagnergraben Viaduct. Next viaduct has a really great name. It's called the Gampelgraben Viaduct. Before we get to the Gampeltunnel. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gampelgraben. With a road at the bottom. And the Gampeltunnel. It's getting better. Next one is the Rumplergraben Viaduct. We already had the Rumpler Tunnel, and this is the Rumplergraben. No, that one. Ah, it's only small. Now, before we get into our trademark tunnel with the galleries. It's not raining, it's the overhead catenary. Probably this is the Höllgraben. Fortunately, I cannot bring back the sun, the evening sun that I wanted for this service. Next tunnel that we're getting to is the one with galleries. That is implemented so nicely. I always like those light effects. Now, unfortunately, without the sun. Weinzettelwandtunnel, what translates to wine slip of paper wall tunnel. Don't know what wine papers they had here to put at their walls. Maybe someone who knows can enlighten us. Here's the second row of galleries. So it's actually 3 tunnels and 2 galleries fit together in one. Weinzettelfeld. So it's wine slip of paper field tunnel. And then we get not only to this Talent 1 that is coming from the opposite direction, but already to Breitenstein, what is the second but last station before we get to Semmering. And from going up to Semmering, starting at Gloggnitz, we're actually about doubling our elevation above sea level. We're starting at roughly 450 and are ending up at about 900 meters elevation above sea level. Breitenstein. And now comes the best part, I guess. With this great rock formation that we can only see here from afar a bit, because we are running straight through it. Der kleine Krauseltunnel. Krauselklause Viaduct. And now we are running into this rock formation here with the Pelleros Tunnel, and after that the Kalte Rinne Viaduct, the Cold Trench, Kalte Rinne, this house that you can see here right of us, I think it is a museum for this guy who was the mastermind behind constructing this railway, Karl Ritter von Ghega. That's the names that you get when you get knighted in ancient Austria. Ancient, well, in Austria in the 19th century, then you get a Ritter von, and this guy is called Karl with a first name, and then Ritter von is the Sir equivalent for being a knight. And then von Ghega, what is his name? Well, we are getting closer to another drop in speed limit at about 100. We will drop to 50. Here's the 50. Now I can't bring my camera back because it is locked outside of the overhead catenary. Atlitzgraben and Wolfsbergkogel-Tunnel. Station marker for the last stop or stopping opportunity before we get to Semmering. We're passing the Wolfsberg, the Wolf Mountain Tunnel. Again a Talent 1 coming in, double traction. And then we're passing Wolfsbergkogel. And here is already the home signal for Semmering, announcing a reduction to 40. But the next signal with the 40 is the starter signal at Semmering. Or maybe we actually have enough time to get this train to Mürzzuschlag. Let's see. You typically have all the time in the world to get to Semmering. Another Railjet coming from the opposite direction. And now we're rolling in. This is Semmering station. Our only stop in this. I love the lighting that you get here. Usually the 1A setting should not slow down your train anymore. But I have a feeling it still does. Whoop! All of a sudden, the glow from the signals vanished. easing in. Alright, and since we're a bit early, we have to live with a couple of points subtracted. Getting dark. The lighting is so nice here. Can find this memorial for our guy Karl Ritter von Ghega. This is his head. Usually his name is embossed here, but not in the game. This is the mastery for this route. The mastery reward, to be exact. It's, as you can see, above Reihe or Reihe 5144. What is a Triebwagen? From what I've been able to find out, it was actually meant to be a cab car to a different train, and then was later refurbished with an engine so that you have kind of a Schienenbus type vehicle. It's not the Blaue Blitz, unfortunately. The Blaue Blitz will be 5154 if I'm not mistaken, but it's getting quite close, and it is blue, whereas our intercity coaches are silver red. Well, let's see what you have here. You have not only the check where you can empty the toilets that are not, for whatever reason, they are not animated in the game, and here is the distributor cut off so that you can cut out a brake in case that is malfunctioning. You have your brake selector where you can set the brakes to P, to R. Here the two brake weights with and without the brake accelerator, and with the magnetic track brakes, and obviously we are running R with magnetic track brakes, otherwise we wouldn't be allowed to run 160 in the track between Wiener Neustadt and Schlögelmühl. Here you can get the air out of the brake cylinders if need be, and here we have nice indicators showing us that all the brakes are fastened, and those actually work. As you can see, if I'm releasing my brakes, they turn. Not only can see how this gauge here is dropping to 0, but they're getting green. And if I apply the brakes, they are back at red. The only niggle, if someone ever will watch this, is that the handbrake should stay green, because nobody is actually fastening the handbrake here, or am I mistaken? Those are the two brakes at the two bogies to the right and to the left. You can see a picture of a brake cylinder and the brake shoe, but that is typically the symbol for a handbrake. And if the handbrakes are fastened on this car, then we should not drive this train. So here you can see where we are going. Resolution could be a bit better actually, but I think this is down to the fact that we are using this dot matrix stuff. Let's lock our doors. And get ready to get the train downhill. Again, we can release the brakes before, because the AFB holding brake is holding us. As long as we're not applying any power. Can check if the signal is still allowing our departure. It is with 40 only. But at any rate, with 40, next signal is supposed to be green. Unlike the Dutch system that only knows the Platzelikke Schnellheit, in Austria, just as in Germany, we have two different speed limit regimes, like the line speed that gets increased to 65 at this point, and the signal speed that gets increased to 65 at this point. And since we are started with a signal that allows us only go 40, we have to pass the white on black sign so that we get out of our 40 signal. Unless the Weichenbereich ended earlier, if someone wants to enlighten me on that. But I guess that's this. Running downhill, I typically like to set the AFB 5 clicks below, because it always tends to overshoot by 1 or 2 clicks. Yeah, now we are actually across the highest point, and we are in Styria in the Steiermark and rolling downhill now. You can see that this tunnel only accommodates one track. So the old tunnel was a single track connection, but was later added, or a second tunnel was later added, so that you have one tunnel for the trains going downhill and one tunnel for the trains going uphill. One is the old one and the other one is the new one. And we are out on the tunnel and have our second line back. Soon enough the limit will increase to 80. At this point here, again, good use for the Roadrunner. One word about the Roadrunner. What is weird, the Roadrunner is so nice on the Taurus or the Baureihe 182 or the Dispolog or whatever versions of this locomotive, of the Siemens Eurosprinter you are using in the game. But it does not work after you reload from a save game. From what I have seen. Reloading from a save game and you can try what you want, it does not seem to bring the Roadrunner back. Station announcement boards for Steinhaus am Semmering, I think, is the first one. There are two stations on the way down, Steinhaus am Semmering and Spital am Semmering. Steinhaus Viadukt. I always remember when CD Radar, my moderator, who actually worked on the Railjet on this line, said, well, yeah, Steinhaus was typically like a signal for him that they will have a break soon. Holzgraben Viadukt. And you can see here on this side of the mountain everything is a bit less picturesque. A bit less severe. So running downhill here is really relaxing. So I did not get the sun that I was hoping for, but at any rate I got a nice running into the dusk. You can see that the distance signals here have a white border. Actually, a thing that I have not covered in my tutorials about Austrian signaling yet. Maybe I will do this soon. They only have a special significance if they show the double yellow, as in Halt erwarten. So as long as they show anything else, they can have a white border, and it does not make a difference. Coming into Spital am Semmering, you can see that they are using the older version of the protection signals here without the white line in the middle. Also very nice lighting here. Another double header with Eanos cars. And 4.2 kilometers to Mürzzuschlag. What is one of the weirdest names actually in the DLC. Nobody really knows why it is called Mürzzuschlag. What is clear is that it is a river, located at a river that is called the Mürz. But what the Zuschlag part of it actually is supposed to say is a bit arcane. Some people say it's because there is like a bend in the river. Some people say it has something to do with cutting down trees. That was too much. I actually wanted to decrease. I just turned it to day. So, signal is telling us we have to prepare for a slowdown to 40.
Zugbeeinflussung.
There's no immediate action necessary for the PZB since we are way under the 80 anyway. And we're not getting a 500 Hertz. So let's see how far we get with our e-brake alone. In Austria it's always nice that the main signals are announced by those white, red, white marker boards. Oh yeah, that should be okay. Signal is up there, you can already see it. Here are the marker boards that I talked about. 1, 2. No, that's not okay, we're too fast. You use the brakes a bit. One, two, three, signal. And now we got the double yellow for Halt erwarten. And we can crawl into Mürzzuschlag. It's getting dark, videos drawing to the end. 70 minutes are okay, Alex said. And we're now closing in, at least according to my OBS, to 59:21. So all good. Tunnel exit on the left. Running across the pass is so much nicer. So careful now, because we are passing a couple of protection signals that are open. That's not the problem, but they are fitted with Signalnachahmen, signal repeater, and if the signal repeater like this one are armed with a 1000 Hertz magnet, we need to hit our Wachsamkeitstaste. Otherwise we will get stopped. So they indicate that the signal is red at the end. And they have the yellow border telling us that there is a magnet. I still think, according to my understanding of the rules, that also the signal aspect should not be white but yellow in a case like this. But maybe I'm wrong here. Yeah, and this is Mürzzuschlag. I'm doing what you should not do, release the brakes completely as soon as you realize that you are going to be a bit too fast. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Mürzzuschlag, last stop before we get to Graz. Well, actually the last stop in the game, because we're never getting to Graz anymore. Have to wait until the passengers did their thing, then we can close the doors again. And we are done with the service. Debriefing here. 2 times docked for speeding. That was at Eichberg when I was looking out of the window too much. Anyway, thank you so much guys for watching this video. It was a first recording it without anyone interfering, asking me stuff and something. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Maybe you can drop in one of my streams or watch videos on YouTube. You're totally invited to, and leave comments. Tell me what I got wrong, or other comments. I'm always happy about comments, dealing with everything. Again, I'm not a professional, I'm not a railroader, but I will never stop trying to understand as much as we can understand from the safety of our homes with this really beautiful game. Not everything is perfect, but a lot of great things are in it. And yeah, so what I wanted to do at this point is to show you where you can find us. That is Tygerways at Twitch and Tygerways at YouTube and Tygerways on the famous Off Black side. Guys, thank you so much for watching and have fun with the event.